Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with the Library. This program is intended for teens and adults, but feel free to have everyone join in. If you have questions for our next speakers, leave us a comment. Feel free to tell us what you're reading, and for those more in-depth questions, please call or email the library. Our chats focus on reading and books. My name is Molly, and I will be moderating. On our panel today, we have Tricia and Abby. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell us a bit about what they do at the library. Abby, let's go ahead and start with you.
So my name is Abby. I work at the library as a I work at the library as a patron services specialist. So I handle library cards and accounts. I can point you in the right direction. Let me know if there's a certain book that you're looking for. We also do all kinds of great online resources and services.
Awesome. Tricia, how about you?
My name is Tricia, and I also am a patron service specialist. Sorry, my dog is not. I do a lot of what Abby does. We do a lot of readers advisory, helping patrons when they come in the building, directing them the right way. Pretty much whatever you need, we're there as your frontline person to help you out when you come in. And online now too. So
that is so awesome. I love that you guys are both here today, and we're going to get started with our first question. And this is the easy one. So, what are you reading right now, Tricia?
I am reading American Dirt by Janine Cummins, and it is fabulous. It's been in the news a lot. You may have seen if you follow books. A lot of controversy. Janine is actually a Caucasian woman, and the story is about a family, mostly a mother and her son, who are fleeing the Mexican cartels. So it takes place in Mexico, and it's all about them trying to escape into America. It's very intense. The language is very descriptive. It's probably not for everyone. But it's very engrossing. It's tragic, what they go through to try and survive. Their entire family, with the exception of the mother and son, in the very first chapter are wiped out by the cartel at a family picnic.
Wow.
By shooters. And so from that moment on, the pace is crazy fast, and it's a really excellent book.
Would you say that your reading is different of it, since you know that the author is not an Own Voices author? Hello.
I've thought about that. I read it before I knew there was a lot of controversy, and I read books primarily for the entertainment value. So when people were criticizing her and saying, she actually received death threats, they stopped the book tour and said she will not be doing a book tour or book signings because there was that many threats on her life. She never claimed to be it was not a nonfiction book. I don't think that Tolkien believed that he was the Hobbit. I mean, you've got to realize that this is a fiction work, and she never made a claim that she was an expert. She did do 5 years of research in Mexico for her own benefit, but I think people need to realize that it's a story. It's not a true story. It may reflect on something, but it's not a true story. And just like, a lot of other books, if I read about World War II or the Civil War, a fiction story, that doesn't mean it necessarily happened that way. So I think people need to kind of calm down and realize by telling her she can't write it just because she's a white woman from America is censorship to me.
Very interesting points of view, definitely. And I do agree that death threats are never okay. I mean, the calm down part about that, definitely, for sure. It would be interesting to see what the publishers have said, or what those articles have been about. I haven't done a lot of research. I just knew there was that controversy around it, so I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Abby, how about you though? What are you reading?
I am reading a really interesting book called Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs?
As we both have our cats.
It is a book about decomposition, and I know that's really freaky, but this is a book that is a compilation of questions asked by children to a mortician about what happens when people pass away. So, for example, one of the questions that was asked was, if I swallowed a bag of popcorn and then went into the crematory, would I turn into a human bag of popcorn? And she gives science-based answers that are fun, and again, it's not directed at children, but the questions that are answered within the book are from children. So it's technically more aimed at a adult reader base, but it's very well written. It's super educational, and again, it's written by an actual mortician.
That's really funny.
Do they answer the question, Abby?
They do. The will my cat eat my eyeballs?
Yeah.
Short answer is yes.
Oh, no. And we will read the book to find out the long answer. Ew.
Why I have a dog.
Okay, let's go to our next question. So you both work on the front lines at the library. You know, you are out there with the patrons all the time, you know, answering their questions, seeing what they're reading. So what would you say is the most sought after book? Like, you see somebody come in and you're like, oh man, they're going to ask for this now because that's what everybody asks for. And I'm sure it changes with the times, but what's the most recent one that you can remember being like the book? Abby, go ahead. What do you think?
The one that I remember most recently, if only because our holds list was so terribly long, Where the Crawdads Sing. That one's gotten a lot of attention. I have heard really good things about it. And it has definitely reached bestseller status. People are really loving that story.
Interesting. And see, I never read anything other than young adults. So I've already established that here. So nobody is surprised by this. But I'm just so far outside of the realm of adult fiction or adult nonfiction, you know, it's just Tricia, what have you seen that has been asked for quite a bit?
Definitely the Crawdad book. I think it goes in streaks according to what's popular, what's coming out in movies. A couple years ago, it was Girl on a Train. Of course, the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing went through. Tolkien was a big, I'm all about Tolkien today. When the Lord of the Rings came through, people were wanting to read that. But then you've also got your younger audience. I think there's a certain, I think it's April, they do the Titanic unit. So you're going to have people come and ask for Titanic books. And time of year, it always makes a difference as well. But there's always kind of one book a year. And for sure, Crawdads was the book last year.
I'm really surprised you didn't say James Patterson. You know, like it always seems like his book is the book. But so that made me think, and I'm going to go a little off topic here for just a second. It was just announced that Stephanie Meyer is going to bring out another Twilight book, and it is called Midnight Sun. So do you think that that's going to be the book? Do you think it's going to have enough of an audience? And are you going to read it?
I will probably read it.
I was like, yes.
Not because I'm like a super twihard, but because I have read the series before. maybe not my favorite theme of literature, but when people are talking about it, you either love it or you hate it, and I want to understand why people love it. I've heard that Midnight Sun, I think it is what it's called, is supposed to be the first Twilight book from Edward's perspective, which is the protagonist opposite Bella Swan, who takes the main stage. The story takes place from her point of view in the regular Twilight series. I'll probably read it just to stay current, so I can understand what the hype is all about, but I'm a Harry Potter fan, first and foremost. So Cedric Diggory is really where it's at.
Tricia, do you think you'll read it?
I will read it. I do enjoy the books, although the fascination with authors coming out with, like, I write a really popular series and then I'll write it from another person's point of view. The 50 Shades of Grey again, I'm going to write it from his point of view.
Yeah.
I was more excited about the Ballad of Snakes and the Suzanne Collins one.
Yes.
Because it was a whole different take, not from a main character, I guess. I'm more excited about that book, but I will still read this one. I was excited.
That's great. Awesome. I remember reading them. I really enjoyed the first one. And then I think I couldn't get into the others. I don't know what it was. Maybe I'm not like a werewolf person, but yeah, I don't know. But the Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds, I was just thinking about that too. And it feels like maybe we'll see more of that coming soon enough. Maybe more prequels or different points of view tellings and things like that. But let's go to our next question. So again, because you are both on the front lines and you get to see all of these patrons come in, I know even from being on the floor that people come in and sometimes they will ask you for the most obscure book and you're like, I don't know. But so I would like to hear about a time someone asked you for something obscure and what the story was behind that, whether it was a success story or a complete failure, because sometimes I still am haunted by some of my failures. I think about them in the night. Like, where is that book? What is it? So let's hear the cover is blue story. Tricia, you want to start?
We get a lot of questions like that. We also do a lot of phone calls and phone kind of reference things. And I think, and Abby, you probably agree, Molly too, it's the best part of the job. It's like a little scavenger hunt. Yes. There's always, like you say, that book you can't find. Mine wasn't actually a book. I had a wonderful woman who called who was looking for a chicken plucker. And I didn't know what she was referring to. And she said, well, a pecker plucker. And I said, I don't know what a pecker plucker is. And it got to be, she was dead serious. She wanted a machine that plucks chickens, which I didn't know existed, that you could get. So we started in looking, and there actually is a machine that's a chicken picker plucker. And you can get it for your own home if you have chickens, and you put the chicken in and it pulls all the feathers off. Who knew? So it was very interesting. She wanted to buy one. She wanted to know if she could get one here in town. And so there's questions like that that are super interesting. And the other one that really sticks in my mind was a man came in and he was writing a movie script and he was wanting to know what authentic animals lived in a certain part of Africa. And he couldn't just say, oh, I need wildebeest. He needed very specific things about this tribe, and it was very he was very intense about it. I did not actually handle that question. I passed that on, and I don't even know if we had the resources to tell. It was a very small location in Africa, but it was a really interesting question.
That's awesome. I love it when it's like a treasure hunt. It's so fun. You know, you're trying to find that info. Abby, how about you? What was the blue cover book?
Wow. Yeah. Treasure hunt. Talk about that. I had a woman come in who had fallen in love with a certain series. I think it was a series of Westerns. I don't remember the title, unfortunately. But she listed off all of the books in that particular series that she had already read and was looking for the next one in the series. So I pulled up one of my favorite resources. I personally like it. It's called Goodreads.com, and they put all of the books from a series in order for you. So if you're looking for whichever one is next, they're a pretty good resource for that. So I was looking at the titles and trying to find which one would be next for her to read. I found the list. I found it right away, but it seemed like it skipped over in numbers, that it was a combination of like 4 books from the series by the author and another 4 books by the same author, but it was a different series, and they kind of combined to tell a more complete story from this fictional world. And this crossover, because it was talking about the same world, it didn't go in the numbers that one would expect from that kind of storytelling. So she was in disbelief that it jumped from this book to another book based on that kind of storytelling. She was adamant that there was something in between that just didn't exist, and I didn't have a good answer for her because that's how the author wrote them. So
Yep. That's how it goes, right? I know sometimes those books are just, I think always the classic one that I think back to is Chronicles of Narnia, because they're not told in chronological order. And so if somebody says, I want them in publication order, you have to try and find that. And sometimes they're numbered chronologically, sometimes they're not. So that's always an interesting one.
I think with James Patterson as well, people say I want the most current James Patterson. Well, he releases 3 or 4 a month, so which one do you want?
Yeah. What's the, there's another true crime one there where the titles are clever but not cleverly numbered or something, but it doesn't matter. My blue book was, this gentleman came in and he remembered, they always remember it from their childhood. That's how I feel. It's always a childhood book. He's like, I read this when I was a kid and I probably shouldn't have. And I was like, okay. I was like, is it racy? And he was like, yeah, it is. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, and I just remembered the cover were these ladies and they were kind of scantily clad and they were looking up at this really muscular dude, like a Hercules kind of figure. And then he told me like a very specific scene in this book and just like he almost rattled it off word for word. And I was like, I have to be able to find this. There's no way I can't find this. I didn't find it. It's still like, that is my book that haunts me to this day. I did not find. Alice, like, there's no way he's being so specific. Like, word for word, I should be able to type this in and find it. No. He's like, I even kind of remember where the section was, so it might have been an author that was an R or a. And I was like, I mean, not an R building, obviously, but it's just like, wow, dude, you really do remember this, and I have nothing.
A little too much.
But it was so sweet because I always love it when they come in and they want that thing from their past to read, or they want to share it with their family, or, it's so sweet. So.
Well, and there's no greater feeling when you actually find it.
Yes.
Needle in a haystack. Yeah, that's a great feeling.
We love that. All right. I'm going to ask you now, what is your favorite type of book to read, Abby?
Fantasy, things that are very high, fantastical things. For example, As a gamer, I play a lot of World of Warcraft, and so Christy Golden has written a lot of novels that kind of cover the lore of the game, and not only that one, but a bunch of other games as well. So fantasy, lands, questing, Lord of the Rings. I just want to travel. I just want to be taken away to some other world where magic exists.
Tricia, how about you? What's your favorite type to read?
I'll read about anything and kind of read across the genres. Historical fiction, probably, if I look at my Goodreads list, I do read a lot of historical fiction. Civil War, Holocaust, kind of heavy, depressing stuff. And so I would say historical fiction for sure. But I do love, again, Tolkien.
Or the theme of the day.
Apparently I'm on a Tolkien kick today, yay. But if there's a hot book, even if it's not something maybe in my favorite genre, I'm going to probably read it just to make sure I'm up to date on the topic and can give my own personal recommendations on it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I find that as I get older and still am reading young adult, that I am finding more of a little niche that I fit into. Hello. And that niche is alternate history for YA. So like one of my favorite ones that I just read, well, it wasn't just, it was like a year ago at this point, but it was called Romanov, and it's about Anastasia and, that whole history. And they go through that history so beautifully, just like it was written as a historical fiction, just like here are the dates, here are the plot points, here are these. But then when the, spoiler alert, but not really since it's history, when the family gets killed, that's when the alternate history / fantasy comes in, and there is magic in the world that has been reborn, basically. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And they just kept it so accurate the whole time through. Another one is the story of Owen, which is another alt history. It is told as if dragons never left the world, basically. And they kind of set up their hatchery in Detroit because they live off of like natural gases and fossil fuels and stuff. So Detroit's just this dragon wasteland.
I would read that.
It's so
I would read that.
Oh goodness. Anyway, but so I find that I get a little bit more in a corner. This is what I want. Just give me this. Sarah loves this book. The Inevitable British Thing. Oh, she's going to be so mad at me because I don't remember the title. But that one was really good. Just books like that. I read a lot of them. My Lady Jane. It's a retelling of Jane Grey. All young adult, though. So anyway. Now that I've fangirled a little bit, Abby, you were just talking about, you wish you could be whisked away to a magical place. Let's say, for the sake of argument in this question, that you could bring any fictional character to life to live in this world. I'm going to start with you, Abby. Who would it be? Who would you bring to the real world?
Ooh. I'm going to have to go with Saphira from the Aragon series, like the dragon herself.
Ooh.
Beautiful, blue, mystical, mind-reading creature that she is. In that series, the dragons really bring magic into the land. Other people can use it, of course, but a dragon rider definitely gets some of his ability off of the dragon, their lifelong companions. So maybe a little bit of a wish that by bringing a character like that into the world, that we ourselves could be blessed with some magic.
I love that you just don't even think like, oh, I should just, a human or something. No, you're like, dragon. I need a dragon.
Give me all the dragons.
Tricia, how about you?
Well, I thought about it, and there were so many that I would want to sit down, like, have lunch with. Tyrion Lannister, Game of Thrones, Offred from Handmaid's Tale, Cinderella, because I feel like she had a really good work ethic. She'd be interesting to talk to and seemed like a really nice person. Skeeter from The Help. She would be a really good conversationalist. So have an interesting group.
I want you to just bring them all and have a tea party, I think. I think that would be really great. Wow, that would be phenomenal.
And when I thought about princesses, I thought, I really thought about, gosh, I really don't need to meet Ariel, though. I don't think we get along. But for some reason, Cinderella, we have a lot of the same principles. So
I just love that. She has a great work ethic.
Worked hard, but she stayed true to herself.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so honestly, I have not thought about this question. When I was younger, I would have been like, yes, I need to bring this person to life. But I don't find that I think that as much anymore. I don't know. So Abby, thinking about some of my favorite books, and you mentioned dragons. There's a book called Seraphina, and it's about a song dragon, basically. And so dragons in this world can take human form. So I feel like it'd be a little less dangerous if she came to visit. But they're very analytical and smart. They speak many, many languages, things like that. She plays multiple instruments. So I don't know, that could be a good one. All my books are sad, and honestly, a lot of people die. So I don't know. Historical people would be cool, though. I'll have to think about that. I'll put it in the comments when this is all done and just be like, this was the one.
It's a good question.
All right, ladies. Well, I thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We love doing this every week and just seeing what's going on in people's brains, what they're reading, what their cats are doing, So thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.